Hi class, I hope you are doing well. This is Dr. Brace and this is a quick lecture on theories and models that are commonly used with health promotion interventions. This is chapter 7 from the text, and for this video I am going to focus on behavior change theories. So first, what is a theory? This is a set of interrelated concepts, so concepts that relate to each other, that when you present them in a systematic way, it lets you look at the relationship among the different concepts to either explain something or predict something. So broadly, if you're trying to change someone's behavior, you're not going to straight away go start running. There's a lot that goes into why people may not run. So they might have a bad attitudes towards it. They might not have knowledge about how to run appropriately. So a concept in a theory would be like an attitude. You might want to work on changing someone's attitude about running. Knowledge is also a concept. You might want to increase their knowledge about how to run safely, starting with a warm-up, wearing correct shoes, things like that. So these are all components of concepts that are part of a theory that if you start small, changing someone's attitude, and then you move to increasing their knowledge, that can then lead to hopefully changing their behavior. So putting them in order and working from smaller to larger can help use theory to explain or predict things. And then a model is taking different ideas and concepts from different theories and then using them together. So we'll talk about a couple of different theories. You might take one concept from the health belief model, one from the stages of change, etc. So some concepts that I mentioned, I mentioned concepts, they're the primary building blocks of a theory. A construct is the concept used within a specific theory, and then a variable, that is what you're measuring. And we'll talk more about that. So, as I mentioned, theories help us provide structure to how we are going to plan a program and evaluate the program. And this is important when we are doing evidence-informed and evidence-based practice. Theories are not one size fits all. There's no one theory that's better than another. It's whichever theory works for what you're doing in a program. So if you're trying to identify where to target change, you might use one theory over if you're trying to change beliefs about whether or not someone thinks they have a health concern. So we've got planning models and behavior change theories. We're going to talk about behavior change again here, and these are the ones that help explain how change takes place. So one of the broadest behavior change theories is the socio-ecological approach, or the ecological perspective, and this is showing us that behavior comes from various levels within your life. So the image or figure 7.2 from the text shows you concentric circles that have different levels, and they include the individual. So this is your genetic factors, your knowledge, things like that. Those can influence your behavior. You've got your interpersonal. These are things like your friends, your family, those you communicate with regularly. If you have one type of interpersonal connection, that might influence your behavior differently than another. That's where the term like peer pressure comes in. You've got organizational level, so this might be in your school or work settings. Your community level, so where you live and what you have access to can impact your behavior. And then there's the policy level, so what policies or laws have been implemented, like smoking bans, that could have an impact on your health behaviors. We have different types of behavior change theories. Continuum, that looks at variables that influence actions and you try to predict something. And then we have stage theories, where there's an ordered set of categories where people are classified, and what you're trying to do is figure out where they are and how you can move them into the next category. So now we'll talk about some theories specifically. So one is the theory of planned behavior, and this is based on the theory of reasoned action, and this is helpful when dealing with volitional behaviors. And the theory of planned behavior explains how beliefs and attitudes can influence behavior. So you want to understand that attitudes, or how you feel about something, can impact whether or not you do a behavior. So this theory's constructs include attitude, subjective norm, perceived behavioral control, and then that can relate to whether or not someone performs a behavior. This is figure 7.3 out of the text, and it shows you that there are different types of beliefs. There's behavioral beliefs, normative beliefs, and control beliefs, and those all lead to different constructs within the theory that you will work to change an attitude towards a behavior or the perceived behavioral control that someone has, and that will lead to a change in intention and then a change in behavior. So please review that in the text. Next, we have the health belief model, and this is a theory that someone indicates someone has to believe that there is a concern in order to take action against that. So it's a value expectancy theory. And health-related action depends on all three of these things happening at the same time. Someone being motivated to change, so they need to want to change. They need to perceive that there is a threat. So they might have a health condition, but do they think hypertension is something that's threatening? And then they also might have perceived barriers. So is there something that they think that prevents them from being able to change their behavior? And within perceived barriers, we have self-efficacy, which is your belief as to whether or not you can do something. The level of self-efficacy that someone has can impact whether or not they feel like they can make a change, or if there are barriers preventing them from making change. This is figure 7.4 out of the text, and it looks at individual perceptions related to the health belief model and whether or not someone is perceived to have susceptibility towards a medical condition. In this case, it's HPV. And then they also need to determine or have a perception of how serious that is. So you might recognize, yes, I am susceptible to HPV because I'm sexually active. However, is it that serious? So someone would have to recognize they are at risk and it is a health condition that is of concern. That leads to whether or not there is a threat. And there are different variables that can relate to how they determine that. These are the modifying factors. And then you also need to outline what are the benefits to receiving the HPV vaccination. And then if you're able to overcome threats, let them know how serious it is, make them understand that they are susceptible to something, then that might make them actually go forth and get the either treatment or the vaccination or whatever it is. We have intrapersonal level theories. The trans-theoretical model is one of those. Sorry, that is a mouthful. And this is also referred to as the stages of change. So you might hear TTM or SCM, stages of change. Either one, it's the same thing. And essentially it's looking at where people are in the process of behavior change and Once you identify where they are, how do you move them to the next stage? So some of the core constructs include the stages of change, so where they are, how they change, so what are those processes, the decisional balance, self-efficacy again, and then also temptation. So this is figure 7.6 out of the text, and this is outlining the trans-theoretical model and the stages within that. So the stages are pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action. Relapse can happen. If relapse happens, you go back into the cycle, and then there's maintenance and termination. So if you take hypertension as an example for a condition, and you want to find out where someone is in this stage, you would do a survey that has questions related to each stage, and someone would fall into the pre-contemplation stage if they don't know that they have hypertension or if they don't think it's important. So hypertension is a condition you might have and not even be aware of it. There might not be any feelings associated with it. You don't necessarily get short of breath or anything like that. So until someone gets a blood pressure screening, they may not even know that they have it. But say they get the screening, they now know, and you've explained the risks to them. So now they're in the contemplation stage. They're thinking about, okay, I know I have hypertension. I know this is a problem. I'm thinking about doing something to change it. Contemplation leads to the preparation stage. So this is where they are making plans to change their behavior. So they're looking at nutrition labels to look at the sodium level. They're talking to their physician about physical activity. They're talking to their physician about potential medications to lower their blood pressure. Once they start actually lowering their sodium content, increasing their physical activity, and taking their medications in the correct prescribed manner, that's when they're in the action stage. But say they go on vacation and they forget the meds and they're on a cruise and there's so many good things to eat. They might relapse, but that doesn't mean that they failed. They just can go back into the preparation stage when they get home from their trip, and they will start gathering all those resources again and then take action. If they make this a habit, that leads them into the maintenance phase. So when you are consistently employing that behavior change without any relapse, that's maintenance. And then some behaviors can have a termination stage. So something where like you were a long-term smoker and you quit and you haven't had a cigarette in over a year, that could be in the termination stage. So these are just some of the theories that we're talking about in class. Please definitely look through your text and review the theories and think about how you could be using one of these as you're developing your program in this class. As usual, if you have questions, please post them to Blackboard and I will answer them there. Thank you.